whatever you do in life, don't people will always remember how you treat them as opposed to how you act. So you can be and do one thing, but if you treat people like crap, that's what people will remember about you. So it's always better to be humble, be respectful, and try to help your fellow man.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tiffany Alexander, and welcome to my podcast. This is Unveiling Journeys. Let me just tell you a smidge about me. I love people. I love getting to know people. I love networking. Like for the most part, because depending on the room where you show up to network, you got to really hang out with cool people. But when you hang out with cool people and you get to have them one on one, you get to say, this has been such a great call. How do I get to know more great people just like you? And or I already know a bunch of people that I think you need to know. I'm like pulling from my list over here. And if you're like, Tiff, I don't hang out with cool people, you can just say, wow, this has been a great call. Who do you know that I need to know? You can just ask for a referral. You can go back to your old list and ask for a referral too. I also there are a few cherished groups that I do enjoy going regularly to business networking meetings, and one of them is Hounds of Business with Mike Ashebrander, and that's actually how I met Eugene, who's my guest today. So I'm really excited to have him on because, oh my goodness, I love being this is a phrase, I don't want to be the smartest person in every room. And when I'm in the room with Eugene, I am not the smartest person in the room. I'm so excited about that because I want to learn. I want to put on my learning hat to get to know everything that he's doing. And I want you guys to be experiencing that with me today. So do this. Welcome, Eugene. Thank you for coming on the show. Do me a favor, tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you're up to right now.
Good evening. Thanks for having me on the show. Pleasure to be here. So we just do a brief high-level synopsis. I'm Dr. Eugene Manley Jr., and I'm the founder of the STEM and Cancer Health Equity Foundation, and we broadly work to increase STEM workforce diversity and get information and resources to underserved patients to help them navigate medical care and cancer care. Because and a lot of this was born out of just me starting out in Detroit, first gen dirt poor, and just seeing how healthcare was and wasn't delivered to my family. And then at some point, finally, it clicked that I needed to use my skills to help educate underserved populations about navigating care.
This is phenomenal. I love we'll crack into more of your story, but the stuff that you're doing, you're basically writing grants, getting things funded, and you're collaborating with the right people because quite honestly, you were telling me the statistics on, hey, yeah, we did a group case study for that. It was like, by all means, you guys didn't tell everybody. It was 100 people and they were all like white male 30. Like, excuse me, what happened to like the rest of the sampling of the population? um, Things affect different races in different manners, and you're here to be a spokesperson for that, which I love. Um, yeah, I just like tell me a bit more about that.
So, originally my training was in lung cancer, and then I switched over to musculoskeletal biomechanics because I really have wanted to be a professor to study cancers that metastasize the bone. So a lot of my work was in lung cancer, then musculoskeletal biology, then breast cancer, and then I finally decided I needed to get out of academia, and so ended up in a nonprofit space. But the interesting thing is, as I started progressing in nonprofit space, underserved patients started reaching out to me to ask me to develop programming and events that really help them understand civilly lung cancer. And then this sort of spun two things out. One is a study that we showed the lack of diversity in lung cancer cell lines. And we looked at over 800 cell lines and found that 290 of them, or 390 were from Asian, 200 were from white individuals, only 31 were from Black, and none were from Hispanic, Native American, Alaska Native, or other Pacific Islander. This is the starting material we have for all our basically beginning biomolecular studies that develop therapies that end up becoming treatments for patients. We only had one non-small cell lung cancer cell line that was from a Black patient. And then if we look at the ratio of male to female cell lines, it was about 2.5 male cell lines to female cell lines and about 7-1 in the Asian subset. So what you mean, you have a massive lack of representation of even the patients with the disease. So that means every therapy that you're putting out is not remotely reflecting the incidence of the populations with them. And so, because I was always advocate that we can't just keep talking about trials if we don't even have the populations that they reflect, even in the starting materials.
Hmm. Yeah. This is mind blowing to me because assume. I just assume. And so, like, when you get to a point where you need some sort of medical care and you hope the trials went as extensive as they need to be for who it is that you are. I mean, just really random example. My husband and he got labs just recently, and they were like, oh, yeah, yeah, they're fine. But I didn't realize the lab was a range from an 18-year-old male and he's 40. And they're like, yeah, his labs are fine. I'm like, he's not 18. He's not like, wait
Yeah.
a minute. So they're like, oh, wait a minute. If they could I understand there's money. Everything's revolves around money, but this goes deeper and wider than I ever thought it could be. And we have a more of a sampling of a population than ever. We have most amount of people constantly, right? To be able to do this data wise, it must just be there's not enough money in it for them, which is why
Well,
you're
partly that, but also it just depends on what they're measuring. Like A1C, when you're looking for someone's diabetic, th- you can test that at any age, and you'll know if someone is diabetic or not. But there are things that have changed. Like they used to have a race correction for, I believe, GFR, glomerular filtration rate in the kidneys. We have no idea why. And that was like overestimating stuff for Black patients. We have, things like pulse oximeters that don't work on Black skin, or you give off readings. So people were not getting either eligibility for lung cancer treatments or trials. And so we have a lot of stuff that's developed, but not with the populations that will use it in mind. And typically they're out of sight, out of mind, and then till later, like, oh, we missed them.
this is mind blowing to me because people just don't know that they don't know. And this is why it's like, I need people to know. So the right people that need to be connecting arms to you, we're going to find them that keep being louder about it all. Right. So
Yeah.
let's do this though. This is Unveiling Journeys. I want to start from the beginning. Tell everybody where are you from and like what you want to be growing up and what was
Um,
school like?
Originally I grew up in Detroit. First gen grew up poor, but I never realized I was poor, but I was a chronic asthmatic. My father was a chronic smoker, and I didn't think anything of, but I was a chronic asthmatic for as long as I remember. And I think partly because of the early smoking exposure probably is why I have so many anaphylactic allergies and seasonal allergies that I still have to this day. But I was always interested in medicine, or it could have been I was in the hospital 20, 30 times a year until I was 10, just with my abs. So maybe it was just forcing me to really understand medicine and biology. But between that and as a kid watching a lot of the Transformers, I really had an interest in engineering. And so literally my whole life went back and forth between engineering and biology. And then ended up doing my undergrad in mechanical engineering, and then all my summers in biomedical research, and then did my master's in biomedical engineering, did knee ligament biomechanics, and then I did the PhD in molecular and cell biology and biochemistry. And that was in lung cancer, like looking at combination drug therapies, tumor microenvironment, pathology, histology. Really learned a lot of great skills and really became a better writer, just because of that work. But if you would ask me when I started, I never knew I was going to have a PhD in molecular. It just so happened. But I ended up every place I've gone, I picked up different skills and tools that I use in the stuff that I do today. And so I still, as I did postdocs, I did work in arsenic carcinogenesis, which, the effects of arsenic in causing normal lung cells to transform to cancerous. I did some work in musculoskeletal biology and biomechanics. And then I did some stuff in breast cancer and looking at invasive proteins, and then high level, you can stain tissues with up to 4 markers at a time. And then if they're fluorescent, you can remove the stain and then keep staining in succession. So you can look at up to 60 markers in a tissue, and then you can reconstruct that digitally, and then look at different markers and say what is changing as a function of tumor growth or progression or as a response to treatment. So you can start looking at the evolution of tumors or evolution of resistance.
Wow.
So that's probably the meh, simple-ish level of what I do or
The
did.
simplest level. Now, was that something that you go to school to school to school? Because I mean, when you have to get your doctorate and you're doing all this stuff, were there any like influences on the change of your path
The
along that?
the biggest influence probably on my path was my science department head in high school. She realized I had an aptitude for science before I realized I had one. I shouldn't tell this story. Oh
Oh,
Lord.
no. Well,
Uh, I remember one year I was doing my science fair project, and I was so proud of my poster, and I forgot I ordered some kit, the project was like a qualitative analysis of proteins and amino acids. Back then we didn't have massive printers, so we had to use the big block letters.
you spelled something
And I
wrong.
had the block letters on my board, and I'm like, and I'm so proud I'm done with my poster. And I said, see, and she's like, are you sure you're done? And I'm like, what? And I'm looking, and then I'm like, oh God. I had spelled apparently a qualitative analysis of protein and
No.
amino. So I had to go and take these letters off. I was like,
I bet she had a good laugh that night.
oh my gosh, she still lets me know about that today. She
Oh,
said, I knew
that's
you were gonna do the road less traveled. I was like, thanks. I was like, I don't think I needed that as the primer for me doing the road less traveled, but thank you so much.
that's hilarious. That's
But she
hilarious.
did actually was honest. She did realize she also got my first biomedical research job, and that was in 11th grade. And then once I learned that there were these programs out there,
Your
I
first
started.
job was in 11th grade
Yeah, I worked
doing
in a
that?
research lab in 11th grade. After 11th grade at Wayne State, yeah, it was no Carmano's Cancer Institute. They had an apprenticeship program, so that was right after 11th grade. And then once I learned that these programs are out there, I started applying for them, and that's what I did every summer, even though I was doing undergrad in mechanical engineering. But I didn't know about these things before she showed me. And I'm one of the people like once I know something's there, then I will sort of just go and run with it.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love that. Um, Now whenever you had your first line of work, this begins to be a lot of years of schooling. What was your, next do you have to do, the regular MD side of stuff where you do some sort of apprenticeship-like thing? What's it called? Um,
So we what
internship, you know?
typically you go undergrad if you're in a biological science, you do undergrad. You can do a master's, but if you do a master's, you're not really going to get a high end job in pharma because you just don't have the PhD. So you may be able to be a lab tech, lab assistant, but or so you won't really go far. But if you do your PhD, then the door is open to career paths. That opens you to pharma, industry, government, nonprofit, and you can start at a higher level and grade. And then you go from there. But there is no, but the PhD, it's supposed to be 4 to 5 years, but I know plenty of people, including me, that took longer because some labs are good at making you stay until you have 2 or 3 publications.
Hey.
And specifically in the US, I don't know if they're still doing it now because there's a little more protection of scholars than there were when I was coming through. Now you just, most schools only keep you 5 years and say you got to be done or out, which is good because otherwise some faculty will keep you forever
Dang.
and happy to get free labor out of you. And then your career is getting slowed down. And so I lost a lot of time. And then my postdocs were just almost as long that I was, trying to get publications, but when you're not getting help getting grants written, you just have to, all right, time to pivot. Cause I said, I grew up dirt poor. I can't keep staying underpaid. And so then I finally found a job at a nonprofit space. And so that's,
Um,
so that's where I went. And if you, and I never thought about a nonprofit as a career, but then as I finished up, okay, I said that's the job. And then I learned, and then it made me be aware that there's so many things that when you go through college as a first gen scholar, you don't know. So I will still now talk to scholars that about, navigating your degrees, your degree transitions, because there's just so much you don't know especially if you've not had anyone in your family that has done it.
Yeah, yeah. Some of those people that guided you and mentored you, what were they telling you? Like, "Just keep going, press forward,"
Well,
you know,
my
what was
science
your
robber was the biggest one. She knew I was stubborn and headstrong and was gonna, forge my own path, and I just was not good at being a follower. So she did tell me, "You're gonna have a road less traveled. It's gonna take you longer to get where you wanna go, but you're gonna make an impact at some level." And she was right. It took me a very long path to get to where I am now. Like, and I never knew I was gonna open a nonprofit. That just was something I saw out of a need about 3 years ago. I just got tired of seeing information and resources not get to underserved patients. I got tired of looking at what my family, specifically my mom, dealt with in healthcare, where, she was just treated so badly by hospital staff. And then I just started to talk to lung cancer patients that are underserved and diverse about never seeing themselves represented in materials or in websites or in conferences. And I said, what can we do to start addressing the challenges? So I've started my nonprofit, and part of the stuff we do is we create infographics to break down medical information as well as cancer information. So we make it so that I somehow blip back in the screen. And so
I was like, "You're in the clouds. You're in the
I'm
clouds. You're already
literally
there."
in the clouds. I'm like, thanks, Riverside. Uh,
Thanks for
um, but
Riverside, get your act together. We want
I
better
know.
backgrounds.
So we did that, and then we do a lung cancer intervention summit that really brings underserved. Really, is focused on Black and Hispanic, but also anyone can attend. But it's really focused on what solutions are people creating that are removing barriers to care and improving outcomes. So we bring patients, caregivers, and survivors in the same space with researchers, clinicians, payers, pharma, hospital systems, etc. So the patients can learn more about the disease, learn more how to advocate, and learn who is working on their behalf wherever in the country. And then we also bring together, these different stakeholders to talk about what solutions they are creating. And then together, you break down the silos between it being just a patient event, just a researcher event, just a clinician event. And then they have to be able to talk heavy science to the public that they can break down to them. So it's a great event. And then this last conference, the patient came up to me crying at the end, like, I've never seen this many Black people in a space, and I felt seen and heard, but it was such great information and it was understandable. And and that's like sort of the why of what you do, like trying to help people who don't ever see themselves and know how to find resources. That's really the why of what I do.
Hmm. Now, the other question would be, why do you keep going? Like, why you can kick up your feet, right? Like,
Well,
you're crushing
I
it.
can kick
I
them
mean,
up now. I couldn't kick them up earlier in the year after I had foot surgery, but I can kick them. I can kick them up now. But the reason I keep going is, even though this is a tough environment right now to be doing anything for underserved or diverse individuals, regardless of whether people want you to exist or not, there are still people that don't know half the stuff that's out there. They don't know how to advocate. They don't know where to find agency. They don't know where to fight against a system that wants to keep them down. So part of our job is to still make sure people know the resources, know where to go, know who to contact, know how to advocate. In my own experience with medical racism earlier this year, where the hospital staff lied in my medical records and said I had no pain and could walk, and said I had caregivers, which none of this is true. After I had foot surgery, the only thing they saw was Black, poor, on Medicaid. And I said, if you did that to me, then how many other patients who actually don't have a PhD, who don't know how to read medical records, are you pushing out the hospital, lying on, misrepresenting, and they don't even know it because they can't read the medical records? So my biggest job is to make sure we teach people how to, make sure you have the right person with you in a hospital, make sure to know who to file reports with, and make sure to know your stuff is accurate, because you just unfortunately can't trust hospital staff
this
right
is
now.
incredible to think about considering the boomer population right now needs more soon to be, if not already, the
Uh-huh.
most medical care for the biggest generation.
Yep.
And if they're starting to have even a hint of like cloudiness, fuzziness in their brain, they could just be shuffled about and their family doesn't know it. I mean, this could just be like an elderly problem alone too, let
Yep,
alone like the misrepresented and underrepresented.
yep. They could say, maybe the day or the day of the week, and they'll use that as, oh, well, you're lucid. You may know that, but you may not be lucid. Literally, yeah. It's the weird things they will do to say you when they want to make you seem more alert than you are. So you really, really, really have to be careful.
Right. I mean, you got a 1 in 7 chance again there, right?
Yep.
It's like,
I mean, yeah, it was just so unfortunately not sad, but we see what happened with the lady this past weekend. But people don't realize that happens to so many black women in healthcare, but in black patients in general in hospital settings where you get hit with rules or they just don't care about you. They just ignore you. You're subhuman. Luckily, that one was recorded, but this happens way more than people realize. And sadly, for black folk, we are not surprised. It's
oh,
we just sort of are and sadly, you sometimes have to become immune to it so you can function. Because if you let it all bother you as much, then we'd have even more stress. But this is, the infant mortality issue is a big issue. I think it's 2 to 3 times the infant mortality rate for black women or children is 2 to 3 times than white women. And there's a whole bunch of other factors in play. And part of it is also how you're treated in the hospital and
wow.
staff and
Yeah.
listening and it's not hard to treat people with respect, but some people don't seem to want to get that concept.
Hmm. I think there's two different sets of people that I think are going to want to get to know you. And the first set's going to be like, I want to know more. Tell me your website. Where can I read up on all your data and your research so I can keep an eye and keep tabs on this? And the other set is a certain level of human that you just want to reach out to, like your ideal person that would be the best who could watch this episode and think, "Hey, you didn't know you needed to know me, but I need to know you." Like who are those people?
Okay, so I guess we'll go with the first part is the website is Sheck, like Shrek. Well, it's pronounced like Shrek, Sheck, but without the R. But the website is https Sheq.org. You can also find me on my LinkedIn. It's Eugene Manley. Good Lord. LinkedIn.com/IN Eugene Manley Jr. PhD. I had to think about that. We also have the org is on LinkedIn, Instagram, and uh, what's the other one? LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, under STEMMCHEQ. When you're trying to get stuff right, you can't get checked, so you have to use the next closest approximation of your algorithm. But you can find information about our stuff, our programming, our summit. You can find our infographics on the website. We also have just started recording a STEM podcast that will start ramping up. This we're just talking to different people in STEM careers about their story, their life path. But we haven't aired the first one, but we're starting to record episodes for that, and we run 2 lung cancer webinars. I guess our ideal audience is multiple. So if you're a patient that wants to learn more about basic medical information and cancer, in particular lung, you could come to us. If you are, a hospital system or academic institution that is looking to develop mentorship or training programs. That's stuff we do. If you are having, trying to figure out leadership positions and change and doing transitions, we work with orgs on that. And then, we do our lung cancer summit where we just bring together multiple stakeholders. So I guess, yeah, our clientele can be the hospital systems, researchers, clinicians, also executives looking for, ways to grow.
And I didn't even think about it. A third person, you're a charity. You're a
Yes, we're
501c3.
501c3. We are fiscally sponsored under the Good Nation Foundation, which all that really means is that we can do donations and fundraising through them, and then it comes to us, but we work under their tax exempt number.
Right. You just taught me about how all that worked. I didn't even realize that's such a major perk for you to be able to do that without having to have all
Yep.
the different
And,
everything that they make you do to have a Reg D
and for
or
a new
sorry.
nonprofit, it is great because You don't have to spend that first year trying to get charity registration in 40 or 50 states.
Yeah,
You immediately are able to raise funds. You can use your fiscal sponsors' revenue as your revenue number, which means you're more likely to get funding from the pharma because they can't. I mean, if you make under 50K or 100K as an org, it's not worth them to invest in you because they only can give you, I think, a max of 20 to 30% of your budget. So if you don't have enough revenue, you just have to wait till you get there. But this is a way to sort of help accelerate it. And if you have a lot of support, you can grow a little faster, but you just have to scale and scope and just try to keep making an impact.
that's incredible. All right, 2 more questions. What's on the horizon?
Let's see. We have a lot coming down the pipeline. We are going to start planning for our 2026 Lung Cancer Intervention Summit. Likely it will be held in Philadelphia late in next year. We're working hopefully to get funding to start creating an online resource portal for underserved patients navigating lung cancer so they can see themselves in the materials with interviews and videos. And our big thing is we're really going to start pushing out our consulting services so people will be able to engage one-on-one or group stuff to help them, accelerate their career, make those challenging decisions and really understand how to, push on in the face of pressure and stress.
Man, you're doing so much cool stuff that that's I think another great reason why I love the show is because when I get introduced to incredible people, I didn't know how bad that the world needs you and how bad all these incredible businesses or products or things that people are doing. And I'm like, please let me tell the world about you. This is so cool to think what you're doing is really important. And I'm so excited for you to keep pressing forward with all of it. And then the event that's going to be happening. I know right after we met, you just finished the last one. You're like, oh, it was a little bit crazy, but like, man, I
Yeah,
made it. So it's exciting to know that you're going to plan another one and it's going to be, of course, like killer.
yeah.
Let's do this. I want to end with your words of wisdom. What would you like to leave everybody with?
I guess a word of wisdom is, you know, whatever you do in life, don't people will always remember how you treat them as opposed to how you act. So you can be and do one thing, but if you treat people like crap, that's what people will remember about you. So it's always better to be humble, be respectful, and try to help your fellow man
That was great.
or woman. Sorry.
I call everyone dude equally. There's no discrimination here. Oh man, this has been so awesome. I'm so grateful for your time. Thank you for coming on here. And sorry, guys, the background was a little bit wonky today. That's,
We were having this, we tried like 8 different backgrounds and they all did the same thing. So it's not me.
we record this on Riverside, and they're a work in progress for
Yeah.
it to be better. Come on, step up to what Zoom quality is. Thank you again for your time. I'm going to duck out for this episode. And thank you, everybody that stayed and listened to the whole thing. I can't wait to see you guys on another episode. And yeah, go check out the page and reach out to Eugene so that way you can figure out how you feel called to make an impact with him. And we'll see you, everybody, soon.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Have a great night. Bye bye.